trigger inside of us of be in control, be a leader, do what's wise, take on your emotions. Don't live by your emotions.
Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. We're a father-son leadership podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And you about killed me there, Robert. Nice numbers on our countdown. Folks, we are honored to have one of our favorite guests join us again, Robert Owens. Man, it is so good to see you again, brother.
Good to see you guys too. You look great.
Yeah. Well, Camden is not aged. There's a point where we transition over a line and it's like, damn, when did we get old?
You know what's funny is I would almost say I feel like if you go back to our first episode with Robert, I think I've aged more dramatically since then.
Why is that? Why is that, Cam?
You know, I might have had a little bit of life come at me over the last five years or so.
Oh yeah, hey, that'll get your attention, won't it?
I think there's a little bit. There's that college kid jump to. I don't know. It feels weird to call myself a man like that. I'm a man type of thing, but make that jump forward. You start wearing the wrinkles a little bit. You can't quite see the grays in the 4K, but yeah,
It's fun is to watch a young man and he's all full of his life and not cocky, but just full of confident stuff. And your dad and I would just go, "All right, we'll see him in 5 years," and then, "Hey, how's it going, dude? Wow, this is different than I thought. And we'll see you in 5 more years,"
Let's jump into that, Robert, because that is one of your favorite demographics to work with. Is that what, 18 to 25, or is it even that broad that you really like working with those guys and helping them become strong young men?
Yeah, I work actually 18 to about 35.
35, okay.
This last 2 years, I volunteered as, actually, when I got done rowing across the Atlantic, the guys came to me from my old crew group at Orange Coast College in Newport Beach, and they said, "You want to come back and work with the kids?" And I go, "What's the problem with the kids?" He goes, "God, they're really immature. It's really hard to get them to focus and blah, blah." And I said, "Sure." So I go back and I look at these kids and I go, "Why are you so immature?" And they go, "What are you talking about?" I said, "God, you're goofy. You got so much talent and your head's so spun, Why don't you get your act together?" And they look at you like, who are you? And so I become the mental resilience coach. They put me in the boat just to get in their heads. I'm the head coach. I get in their heads. And so I say, I'm going to redline you, and we're going to take you to places you have never been, and you're going to really like it. I'm going to teach you how to grow through it and gain confidence and mentally become stronger. And so they look at you like, who is this guy? Where'd he come from? And the coach will say, "What do you want to do to him today?" And I'll say, "We're going to do this or that." Anyway, it's been an interesting thing to see these kids come up afterwards and go, "Gosh, thank you, coach. I mean, thank you so much. I never thought that I could do X, Y, and Z." And I say, that's what we all said at your age. There's so much more potential in you if you allow someone to bring it out of you. And we do that. We say to men or women, how much do you want to grow? How much do you want to grow up? What's your why? Why do you want to go through what we're going to put you through? And then we say, great, we're really excited to help you with that journey. And then we take them into places and they just look at you. We say, breathe, breathe. You'll get through this thing. And then they just grow. And then at the end of 2 years or so, they say, like at the end of the second year with this one class, they all just said, "Gosh, coach." And I said, "You guys are breathers." And they go, "We're breathers. We know how to breathe our way through anything." And I said, "You're right, because you get control of your emotions and your mental framework, and don't let it overwhelm you, and stay in the game. Just breathe, and we'll take you through." And it's just so much fun to see kids grow. It works for adults too, but it's fun with kids.
What do you think? There's an interesting kind of paradox there that I'm not sure if we've talked about before in our show. Of you talking about the young men there and how they don't have that like confidence necessarily, and you have to teach them to breathe through the problem, teach them that they can get through these hard circumstances. But then also, I was kind of joking like the college kid looking at myself in the mirror from 5 years ago. Of you also have this really high level of aspiration of like I feel like I could change the world, but then also like if you ask me to go do 100 push-ups or something, it's like gosh, there's no way, that's too hard. How do you kind of square those two? What do you think? What do you think causes that? Because to me, those seem like they're a little bit at odds with each other.
You really can't do a diagnosis until you ask the young person or the person in general. I mean, I'm on the phone this morning with a guy who had a stroke this last week, and I've been telling him for 4 years, you're overweight and you eat crap and you're going to go down. And he's, yeah. And then he texted me, I had a stroke a couple days ago. I said, okay, now what? And so unless someone wants to grow and wants to take on the challenge of growing, which is pain, because everything we want lies outside of our comfortability. If you only want to be comfortable, we won't take on difficult things in our lives. And so when you learn to take on difficult things like one less donut or one less cigarette, and you take yourself on every day, do something hard, all of a sudden you grow mentally, you grow emotionally, you grow in your confidence. And when, as Goggins says, you embrace the suck of not going with the flow, but taking yourself on every day. And when you do that, you grow up. And so I am always excited when I say to somebody, like I'll be doing at SEALFIT, we're in the middle of our 50-hour nonstop. And a kid will pull the plug on himself, a 30-year-old or 20-year-old, he'll say, I'm cooked, I'm done. And I'll say to them, breathe. And they'll look at me and I'll say, if I gave you $1 million, would you quit? And they look at you and go, no. And I said, so I give you $500,000. You still want to quit? No. So I gave you $1,000. Is it worth it? You want to quit? And they look at you longer. They go, yes and no. And then I would say, if I gave you $50, would you quit? And they all go, yeah, I'd quit for $50. But I wouldn't quit for 100. Or I wouldn't quit for 1,000. And so you talk to them and you say, okay, how bad do you want to grow? How bad do you want to change? How much do you want to embrace your discomfort? And breathe and look at me. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to kill you. I'm not here to squash you. I'm here to help you grow up. And if they look at you and say, I'm in, then you can work with them. But until someone really says, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, I'm really tired of me, I'm really tired of my excuses, then you'll always get that mushy response of, well, I don't know, and this and that. Because what we know is that if you really want something, it's not a sacrifice to give up stuff for what you want. It's so exciting to give it up to get to that goal. But if you don't have that goal that's worth it, everything is a sacrifice and difficult and a problem and you don't understand. No, I understand. You just don't want it bad enough. And so, I mean, if I want to date a girl, I'd move heaven and earth to find a way to go meet that girl, right? Yeah. If I want to go snow skiing, if I want to go surfing, I'd find a way to make it to the mountains when there's fresh powder or when the waves are up, to find a way to get to the beach. I had no problem growing up doing what I really wanted to do. Problem was, it was probably the wrong things to really want to do. And so it's just, working with kids and saying, why are you a follower? You have leadership on you. You have gifts inside you, and you're stifling them because of your undisciplinedness and your lack of vision for yourself to become who you really are destined to be. So, and then they look at you like you're weird, and you just say, so what do you want? And they just, I want a better marriage. Okay, well then we're going to work on it. I want a better job. Well then we're going to have to work on it. Those kind of things, and you just help people grow. Fun.
Talk to us about that because you've said breathe, and there's some beauty in that. and the you force the person out of panic into, because at panic we're fight or flight, right? To pause. So talk to us a little bit about what's going on inside the mental cavity when you get them to, all right, just hold on.
All of us have a fight, flight, or fight kind of a panic button. There's a book out that your audience may enjoy. It's called How Bad Do You Want It? And it's by a Sports Illustrated triathlete writer by the name of Matt Fitzgerald. How Bad Do You Want It? And inside there, in one of the chapters, is a PhD thesis on when you begin to have emotional pain, there's a certain chemical that begins to drip in your brain that says to you, protect yourself from this feeling. So your body wants to protect you from the pain that you're beginning to go into, and a chemical release, not a dopamine, but a different chemical releases. And when you press through that mental pain thing, then you go into another flow. And then you go into a physical pain, and that physical pain is real. And there's a different chemical released in your brain at that point to say, you can't do anymore. Don't do it. You're going to get hurt. And when you get through that second phase of your brain trying to protect you, you go into another space where you understand that miserable will never kill you. It just makes you miserable. And so our job is to help you get miserable and smile at you and say, it's okay, isn't it? It's not that bad. You can do this. And they look at you and you say, breathe, relax. It's all outside of you. If it's on the outside of you, it can't kill you. So whether it's whatever that stuff is all over your body or whatever's going on in your head, we're here. We like you. We love you. We're for you. Enjoy being miserable. And most people don't want to go into that place. So at the end of Navy SEAL training, when you're on the Friday, it's from Sunday night to Friday night, when you are at the end on Friday and you're getting ready before you graduate, they take you down to the San Diego River. And the San Diego River is the river between Tijuana and California. And it's not a river, it's a sewer. And the government has been fighting with the Mexicans to clean up their sewer coming into this river for 50 years. And it hasn't been cleaned up. So you don't want to go surfing right down there in front of the end of California because it's just full of crap. And so when they have these guys that haven't had any sleep, have maybe 2 hours in a week, they take them down in full fatigues. They make them jump in the river. They have to jump in a sewer. And they have to egg beater kick and stay on top, which is not hard to do. It's hard to sink and crap. And they have to sing songs. And they have to sing songs to each other for 4 or 5 hours in this sewer. And the instructor says, how you doing, you guys? No problem. No problem. Why? Because it's not going to kill me. It's just miserable. And there are times in life when you're miserable. Your kids are giving you fits, or your finances are nuts, or your marriage is driving you nuts. And if you haven't learned to live within that space of this is really hard, or I really don't like this, or I want to get out of this, if you can't turn that lemon into lemonade and find some way to grow, you'll pull the button on yourself. And so we teach kids that space that's in there is you're going to go into a place now where your mind doesn't want you to go, and you're going to have to wrestle with your mind because it's not going to kill you, just you don't like it. I mean, I've done 12 Ironmans, and I've passed out in 6 of them. And so, I'm not real good in humidity. It's like I sweat a lot. No matter how much I drink and get my electrolytes, I do these Mexico ones and I do these Florida ones. It's just hot, and humid. And the humid guys, from Miami say, you ought to come train down here. This once a year going into humidity, it'll kill you. If you just lived in it, you get used to it. Anyway, I wake up this last one, and the ambulance is there to take me away. And I say hi. And they say, we're here to help you, sir. I said, thank you very much. Just stand me up. And they said, we need you to go in the ambulance. You're done. And I said, thank you very much. I'm not done. And they said, no, you're done. I said, I'm not done. And they say, why? And I said, just give me some fluids. And I stand there for a minute, lean on the hood of a car, look around, say, I'm going to walk. And I start walking, and pretty soon I'm jogging, and pretty soon I'm back running, because your body will come back. But your mind says you've reached your limit of what you can handle. And once you learn that you can go through those limits by thinking correctly, I've been here before, I know what's going on, it's not a big thing, this too will pass. Beef with your wife, working with your kids, losing a job, or financial pressure. Once you begin to develop confidence in that headspace and you practice hard things, if you only do a hard thing once in your life, you don't know what you're going to do. If you only do a hard thing once a year, you'll go, I don't want this. But if you do hard things weekly, if not daily, like today on the treadmill, I'm still working with my COVID lungs, and I'm still going to my pulmonologist because my lungs were cooked. And so I don't have the anaerobic capacity that I had. And so today I said I'm going to drive my lungs into a place where I'm just going to die. I'm just going to sweat, and I'm going to be dripping, and I'm going to go, this is really hard, I want to stop. But since I've done this kind of thing so many times, I just psych up and say, this will not kill me. It's just going to be hard. And practice makes perfect, right? Mm-hmm. And your young people have to say to a mentor, because you can't do it on your own, because you'll quit. You need someone to look you in the eye and say, I'm going to walk you through that. We teach the 20X principle, that there's 20 times more potential in you than you've ever allowed someone, a mentor, a coach, to bring out of you. And so that's why you hire someone to look you in the eye and say, let me help you go to the next level in your life. And then you thank them at the end. This kid, this one rowing kid this year, he's from New Jersey, and his dad's a bartender, and he's been told he's a piece of crap all of his life. And no mom existed, and he did his homework down at the bar with all the drunks. And he came out here to row crew, and he just heard about this program and came out here. And I said, is your dad ever going to visit out here? He goes, hell no. I said, does your dad carry here in California? He goes, no. He said, doesn't care where I'm at. I said, great. I'm your new dad. And I love you. And I'm for you. And you're going to do great. And he came up to me this year. He just got done rowing in Henley in England, when our team went to England. He came up and he hugged me and he said, thank you for believing in me. I said, you got so much talent. I said, you going back to New Jersey? He goes, no. I'm going to San Diego State on a scholarship. I'm staying out here, staying away from my dad. And I went, you're a great kid. You can do anything. And he's the one, he looked at me and I said, breathe. And I'm going to redline you. We're going to redline you. Breathe. And he grew and he grew and he grew. And then he hugs me and he says, thanks so much. I'm going to San Diego State. I said, you're a huge dude. You did great. So I don't know if that answers all that, but there's that space. Yeah. There's that space in your head that if you don't practice doing hard things, taking yourself on, then you'll always be a wuss, because when something comes, you'll go, I don't like this. What am I going to do? And you'll find some excuse-minded friend that'll give you an excuse. Because winners hang with winners, and losers hang with losers, and excuse-minded people find excuse-minded friends to give them excuses. So you'll be like the people that you hang around. I'll stop. I say too much.
No, it's great. I think the interesting thing they're talking about, the pain being finite, that there is like an end to it. And you talked a little bit about this, how like the love and the support from the mentor, from the coach, from the father figure, whatever that is, can help to cover this. But I think there's an interesting thing. When we talk about pain being finite, a lot of the time it helps. It's like we have an end mark on it. But there's a difference between having an end mark and it being finite. Like, I know this pain isn't going to last forever, but it's not like I only got 5 more minutes of this. There's a lot of times where we don't know when it's going to end. We know it can't last forever. Pain can't last forever. But we don't know what that end point is. I'm curious, Robert, what your perspective is as a leader on how to communicate that to the team. Because you know it's going to end. It's like, look, we need you in this sprint. I need you to push. We're going to get there, but I don't know when there is. And it's really hard as a leader to go to our team, sell them on that, but then not know when that's going to come to an end, when we're going to reach our goal. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, imagine we don't know when Al Qaeda is going to stop chasing us. Right? Mm-hmm. We don't know if it's a 1-hour skirmish, a 5-hour skirmish. We don't know if it's going to go all night. Lone Survivor, he didn't know how long. Do you remember the movie Lone Survivor? Yes, he didn't know how long he's going to crawl with that rifle 12 miles on his stomach. What you do is you get people to realize that no matter how bad it is, they can make it. And you take your team into places where you say, I don't know how long it's going to last, but if we stick together, we'll find a way to win. And you become a team versus a group of individuals. And if I'm more concerned about my teammate than I am about myself, then you'll find your team will take care of you while you're taking care of them. And so a lot of times, just what you're saying is true. I don't know how long I'm going to be in financial difficulty. I don't know how, like my mom was a PE major at UCLA. And she got lupus when there was no cure. And so my mom died on me in 6th grade from lupus. Went from 150 pounds to 99 pounds. My dad carried her in the house, put her on the couch from ICU in the hospital, took her back, died, resuscitated her. My mom had lupus till she was 92 years old. 92. And she got it at 33. And so she always was saying, I wonder how long this is going to be with me and if I'll ever beat it. And my dad said, we'll beat it together. We'll beat it together. And he took care of her on prednisone and cortisone. She had osteoporosis, shrunk 2 inches in her back. Now this is a PE jock that's all of a sudden losing everything. And he just said, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be with you through this thing until we get it beat. She went off prednisone and cortisone, I think at 78 years old. Been on since 35. And so you don't know. And that's why you've got to get your mind in a place where you tackle difficulties, because the company may have difficulties for a while. And some people want to quit because I just don't want the pressure. And you build a culture of, we're going to run into difficulties. Matter of fact, here's a philosophy of life. What happens if the philosophy is this? Life is really hard. And if you don't have a hard day, it's a really good day. So I expect every day to be difficult. And if I have an easy day, it's a bonus. But if I think that life's supposed to be easy and I have a hard day, oh, that really rocks my world, right? Because I don't want a hard day. I think life should be easy and comfortable. And so all of a sudden, here comes something that just knocks you out. And then you have 2 days in a row like that. You go, oh my God, can you imagine? So I live every day that it's going to be hard. If I don't have a car wreck today, somebody doesn't hit me, it's a good day. If I don't get sick today, it's a good day, right? I mean, the other day, I'm driving, I get to a stop sign, and a guy who's 87 years old runs the stop sign and hits me, right? And so I get out of the car, ex-paramedic, special ops, and instead of worrying about my car, I go to him, are you okay? And he's crying. He says, I'm sorry I didn't see you. I said, it's all right. I have to get him out of his car. I have to get him over the side of the road. I have to talk to him. It's going to be okay. And I'm the one that's just been hit. So if bad things happen to me, it's no big deal. It just is another adventure. But for some people, if bad things happen to them, they lose control because they're not leaders. They don't know how to step into that pressure and find that way to walk through that versus blowing it and doing something stupid. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cam, I'm just looking at Cam. Cam's going like this.
It
Cam, what
makes
are
a
you
lot of
thinking?
sense. No,
What are you thinking, Cam?
no. Honestly, this is funny. I'm thinking back to a car accident I was in not that long ago, and I got in an altercation with a guy who hit me, and it's one of those I look back on. It's like how quickly I just felt myself go, because I'm a very nice, calm person, and how quickly it got away from me. And I'm like, ooh, there's something I need to think about a little bit there of how working on controlling yourself in that kind of an environment. So yeah, I went very introspective. I probably glossed over on the eyes a little bit there.
Yeah, I have to think about road rage all the time because I'm just a split second away. When some guy just cuts you off or does something stupid, you just want to go, hey, what are and you breathe. No big thing. Let it go. He may have a gun. Just relax,
Yeah.
Don't let your testosterone, your male thing get lit up, be smart. And all of us have that trigger inside of us of be in control, be a leader, do what's wise, take on your emotions. Don't live by your emotions. And many people, they live by their emotions. Whatever I feel like eating, I'll eat. Whatever I feel like saying, I'll say. Whatever I feel like doing, I'm going to do. And and for your listener, I'm a grandfather now. Undisciplined people are emotionally and mentally immature. Emotionally and mentally immature people are immature. And if you don't embrace discipline as a lifestyle, taking on things that you don't want to take on and trying to not be a slave to it, but to be a leader of it, if you don't do that, you'll do emotionally stupid things and mentally stupid things, and you'll say stupid things that you'll say, I wish I hadn't said that, but I emotionally lost it, and now I have to eat those words and say I'm sorry or get the ramifications of it. So I've worked with people, and I work on myself to be disciplined in every aspect of my life. Because the fruit of it is I think better, I react better, I plan better, and I don't get rocked the way my friends get rocked. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I want to use that thought and step into rowing across the Atlantic
Oh my.
and the team dynamic that you worked in pre-launch, and then how that changed, because you've touched on several things, and I think there's some great uh, graphic lessons in
Yeah.
what you've talked about in that journey that you went on.
One thing as you grow older, and Otis and I might know this, Cam, because we've just been around a little bit longer. But when you've been on good teams, it's really fun. And when you get on a bad team, you so remember how a good team was a good team when you're on a bad team. And so I had to do 2 rows. I had to go over, I was on a European team, and I was recommended to be on an all-European team of rowers to row across the Atlantic Ocean. And we had 12 in a boat, 6 row at a time, 3 on the left, 3 on the right, starboard and port. Anyway, I went to Ireland and Scotland and rowed with them in the North Atlantic to meet my team. And it was a 7-day row, nonstop, 24 hours a day. So you get to know each other. You do the shifts. You have 2 night shifts and 2 morning shifts. Okay, got to know these guys. But it was not in big seas. It was inside of an island, like, an island here, then a waterway, and then the land. So it was pretty smooth. Then at the end of that, half the guys quit and said, this isn't for me. I said, all right. So then we have to go row across the Atlantic. So they bring in 4 people who I'd never met before. Come to find out that none of them had ever been on the ocean before. They were all lake rowers, river rowers, reservoir rowers in Europe. And I'm an ocean guy, beach lifeguard. I've been around the water all my life. So I say to them, they're all drinking red wine before we go, And I say, how's it going? And they all say, it's great. We're in the bar and, just getting to know each other stuff. And they say, you're a little old, aren't you? And I go, yeah, probably. And they said, oh, well, nice to meet you. Like, what are you doing here? You're old American. What are you doing here? And so I can tell right away that I'm going to have to be real quiet and just do my job, shut up. And so we take off, and I eat differently than the other 11. Why? Because I'm going to graze on nuts and berries and oatmeal to not have a big fat stomach, so that when the big seas hit us about 10 hours outside, my stomach's going to be better versus eating 5,000 calories in carbs in a you add water expedition meal, stir it, eat that thing. So all of a sudden we have 11 guys puking. 11 guys puking, and they say, why don't you eat with us? And I said, I don't want to eat like you. And they say, why? I said, because I don't want that big fat stomach full of food when I'm going up and down, sideways and all this stuff. And you're all throwing up. And they threw up for 3 straight days. They had patches behind their ears. They had everything. And I said, I get it. You know what you're doing. I'm just the old guy. And so I'm the old special ops guy, and you're the reservoir rower out here in these waves. So I get real quiet. But when they began to throw up, they began to lose their personality, their sweetness, their kindness in the bar with red wine. All of a sudden, they morph into a bunch of miserable people. Miserable because they're miserable. And when they're miserable, they don't have to encourage anybody else because they're miserable. Anyway, we get out there, and there's 2 boats behind us. There's a bunch of boats rowing from the Canary Islands over to Antigua across the Caribbean. It's a race every year. And all of a sudden, these waves are so big that 2 boats behind us get capsized, and one gets broken in half. And these guys are floating out in the ocean. We have no support boats. So they're floating in their life vests for 3 or 4 days with their little beep, 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 beep to let the satellite know where they're floating around. I'm thinking, those guys are shark-infested water, beep, 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 beep. Anyway, our boat gets through this thing, and we get out there, and the waves are 3 stories high. 3 stories. And so instead of paddling an outward canoe, you're going forward. When you're rowing, you're going backwards. So when you're coming down these waves, you're going to bury that bow, and it's going to flip. You work really hard to get your act together at 3 o'clock in the morning when it's pitch black and there's no stars. It's just you, and all you can do is hear these waves coming like a train, and then whoosh, they break on the boat. And people are cussing, and people are screaming, and people are thinking they're going to drown. And I'm saying, bada bing, I got an adventure. I paid for this. This is just all I wanted. I get knocked out of the boat. I'm dragged out in the ocean, on a tether, trying to get myself back in the boat while another wave's come breaking in. Somebody else, gets picked up in the front, and they're in the back of the boat. The wave just picks them up. And we're trying to keep our oars from breaking, so an oar breaks, in half, and then an oar breaks in half. Oh, here we are. Anyway, this team becomes real unraveled because they've never experienced it. They couldn't imagine it. They didn't know what to do with it, and they weren't well prepared. Anyway, they say to me, hey, Robert, why don't you ever say anything? You get real quiet. And we row 12 hours a day. We row 43 days, 3,100 miles, and we rowed 2.5, 3 miles an hour. So it's like rowing from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco. And it's a long way through Iowa and Nebraska. Anyway, they say, why don't you say anything? And I say, because I'm thinking about my thinking. And they say, well, what are you thinking in your thinking? I say, I'm thinking how I don't want to be like you. Because they're losing it. And so the whole team hardly speaks to each other all the way across the Atlantic. Because they're so easily offended and so easily wounded by one another. What do I learn in all that? You want to know what you're preparing for. You want to know who your team is, and you want to train with your team in the environment that you're going to be in versus all of a sudden this is brand new and you've never been there before. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. And it was one of my most challenging experiences in my life because people were the issue, not the ocean.
Mm.
The ocean just gave you a chance to be who you really are. And it was a nice 43 days. I'm the oldest American to ever row across the Atlantic. I've sailed the Atlantic, and then I went back and rowed the Atlantic, and I think I can do this. Just put me with the right people. just put me with leader types, not follower types that lose control when things aren't going their way. Ask me a question.
You know, I hope we're on the same page with this, Dad, because I'm going back to a memory that you and I had coaching the Colorado All-State team. And we probably told this story in some fashion before, but there was one year where when we were designing how we wanted to select the teams, we did just scrimmages. And we had them come out, they were just running at each other. We did 2 full days of scrimmages, selected our team. And then when it came time for practice, they had no skills. They were guys that could bash down the front door, hit somebody right in the mouth, really hard running athletes, but they were terrible rugby players. And then, we think back to in a year later, I think we talked about, it's like we had the opposite problem before where we just did the skills. And we had guys that were really skilled, but nobody could really tackle. And we didn't have any of that physical component there. Robert, I'm really curious. What do you think is the thing you might be missing, the attribute you might be missing when you test for the environment you're going to be in? And what I mean by that is you take those people, like what I was saying of like the game example, right? And you take those people like, look, they thrive when they're in the shit. They thrive when the waves are 3 stories high. Is there anything you think you might be missing with that, and how can you select for that? Because I'm just thinking I want to make sure I'm selecting a well-rounded team as well, and getting the right people in the right positions. And I could see how you could have a little bit of a, not necessarily overcorrection, but you missing some certain personality traits or certain skills that you are only getting by testing that.
I don't think there's another way to find out who someone is until you watch them under pressure. And your rugby pressure has to be a rugby pressure that brings out all the different things, from servanthood to leadership to command and control, all those you have to see it. And that's why a team that plays together for a while, you get to really figure out who the players are. When you're going through pararescue, which I was, or training SEAL guys or Rangers, that's why it's 9 to 13 weeks long in the beginning. And that's why it's 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, because you want to see people at their best, you want to see people at their worst, and you want to see them when they're not strong, and you want to see them when they are strong. And in that pressure cooker, you understand the personalities that will make up this team. And sometimes some guys are really good, but they don't fit personality-wise with this group. Or you have to bring in a certain kind of personality to fit with this kind of group. Why? Because it's a chemistry. And so testing and watching and putting people in uncomfortable things is just like, if you're a swim guy, put me in a swim thing. But if you're not a swim guy and you got to go through combat underwater training, what are you going to do? And so can the swim guy teach that guy? And is he teachable? And is he a teacher? Or is he all about himself? Or if he's a run guy? Or if he's a weightlifting kind of guy, a ruck kind of a guy? Do they help each other? Do they live as an isolated unit, or are they really a team guy? And so you can have better players that aren't team guys. And you can have other guys that aren't quite as good that are team guys, and the team meshes. So I'm sure your dad has comments on this, but it's watching people under pressure and smiling at them and saying, "Hi, how you doing? Where'd that come from? Why don't you follow orders? Why don't you do what you're told? Why do you throw your tennis racket? Why do you, why are you so easily, moved and rocked? What are we going to do?" And so anyway, you just have to work on those kind of things, I think. Otis, help me on that.
No, even going back to when you were talking about being miserable, and I've always said misery loves company, and in that pressure cooker of misery, that's when people you start to see the inner character come out. You mentioned that on your rowing across the Atlantic and working with these younger rowers at the university, and how you put them under pressure and you start to see that inner character come out. And the beauty of it is they can learn to make a choice and they can
Mm-hmm.
change that inner character.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, they're not stuck. Because you lose it in one situation doesn't mean that you're going to lose it again, because you get to learn from that if you choose to. And that's what it all comes down to. And it even comes into the something I've always snickered at and loved is the stress that we create is what we create. It's not from somewhere else. It's all up here. Stress is all up here. Misery is all up here, right?
Right.
It's the what's Briar Rabbit say? Throw me in the briar patch, right? Throw me in. Oh, don't throw me in the briar patch, right? Because that's his inner peace place. I
Let me give you an example.
yeah,
So when I'm looking at you without my glasses on, this is where everything is positive, and everything is possible, and everything is hopeful. So I have a place. When a baby's born, the baby isn't born like stressed out and learn to hate and learn to be selfish. The baby learns from the people around them and develops a culture that's transferred from generation to generation. But when the baby comes out, the brain is pretty empty. I mean, it's a matter that is to be developed. Now you choose how it's going to be developed, mom and dad, neighbors. So for me, everything is good, everything's here, and then I put on me, and this is me, and I dumb down the world to this. This is the real world, and this is how I dumb it down in my worldview. So everything is positive, hopeful, good, it's going to work out. No, it's not, never has, sure couldn't, you understand what I'm going through. No, really, you could do this kind of stuff. So I work with people, and I say, you have this lens on life. You're stronger than you think. You're more capable than you think. You're more handsome than you think. You're more everything, But then you put these on and you go, no, can't, couldn't, shouldn't. It's impossible, all that stuff. And so I try to get people to take those lenses off that they've been raised with and look at life this way and not kill it by putting their reality. I'm a white guy, I'm old, I'm this, I'm that. When I go to Africa, when I go to Asia, when I go to, China, when I go to Russia, I look at all these people and then they put on their culture. And that's their worldview. So when we get kids in training, I do that demonstration. I say, every one of you here is special. You're gifted, you're smart, you're capable. But the way you've been raised, you got snakes in your head. And we're going to have to rewire your brain to think right if you're going to make it here. Because we can't allow quitters, and we can't allow self-resilient, self-surviving kind of people to move through, because someone's going to lose their life. And they say, well, I'm Puerto Rican, or I'm Black Chicago, or I'm white Rhode Island, or I'm surfer from Southern Cal. We don't care. We have to rewire your brains to think the way we need you to think, because we're going to bring stress to your life. And we need you now to think like a champion, not as your culture. You want to do that. You want to lose your culture and come in and be with one of us. When I graduated from pararescue, I was getting a master's degree in irresponsibility before I went to the military. I was a punk. I was just a punk. Long hair, smoking cigarettes, getting drunk, crashing cars. And then these guys put me in pararescue. When I graduated, my dad, who was an Army guy, he came up and looked at me with my boots bloused, and my beret on, and he said, "What happened to you?" And I go, "I don't know." And he said, "You changed." I said, "I know." And he said, "No, you really changed." I went, "I know. I don't." And who are you? I said, "I don't know, but I'm not who I used to be," because they grew me up. And how many young men need someone to come alongside and say, you can do better, you can be better, you can grow up, and you can have a great life. You don't have to be like anything else behind you. This world's great. But so many young men today don't have father figures, and they're raised on their own. They don't know what male masculinity is. They know the phony stuff, all the bling and all the puffing out, act like you're a stud. They have all that stuff, but they don't really know how to grow. And your podcast and what I do with others, we can help young men or men 35, 40 years old. They say, no one ever taught me. I don't know how to live. I'm surviving. Fake it till you make it. And I've been faking it all my life. And we say, you want to change? You want to grow now? And they look at you, what's it going to cost me? Oh, it's going to cost you everything. But you can change and you can grow. Cam, what are you thinking?
Yeah, one of the things I have a really good one for you, Robert, because I think Dad, we've done this a couple of times where you go down these rabbit holes. You start thinking about the mindsets, right? And then what I start thinking is, okay, what's the problem? Why can't we all have the same mindset? There's got to be some reason. And what I keep going back to, playing devil's advocate a little bit, of course, but is the idea that there's got to be some reason that we don't want to be the one to go do it all. We think we can't all go do it. There's something there. I'm trying to get to what that fear is. And it keeps coming back to, I think it's the idea of like a zero-sum game. That it's, if you go and create greatness, if you go pursue your greatness, then I can't pursue my greatness. That somehow we're taking it away from each other with that. And I want to throw that over to you, Robert, because I clearly I don't think that's true. But there is a little bit of, there's a little bit of competition aspect there. We can't all go be perfect. We can't all go that path. But yet this belief, this desire, you call it like the 20X, that desire to be, 20 times better than you are now, that you have that potential inside of you. That's a really powerful thing. Why can't we all just believe that? Like, kind of going down that devil's advocate rabbit hole with me, Robert. What do you think?
Because we have so many negative influences coming into our brain all the time saying, don't try, don't fail, don't be embarrassed, don't be ashamed. I don't want rejection. I don't want failure. I want to be appreciated. And if I stay quiet, they won't know that I'm afraid. And so we have all these things coming at young people that they grow and they grow in our heads, and they stifle our adventure. They stifle our creativity. They stifle our willingness to try, because someone's going to go, ooh, you didn't do good. And so in 7th grade, I stood up to speak, and I had to give this little speech, and I stuttered, and I never spoke again until I was probably 22 years old. One bad experience in 7th grade, I'm never going back there again, ever, And so people have those experiences that they just don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to be so open they can be ridiculed, and so they don't try. And on that thing, the greatest thing that you can give any kid in the natural is confidence. Because if they're confident, they'll at least try. But if they've lost their confidence, they won't even try. They'll say just no, I can't do it. And I think that we need to recognize that people are fragile, and people are hurt, and they're tender, and they don't like embarrassment, and they don't want to be ashamed, and they don't want to fail and be ridiculed, and therefore they won't try. But if you could say, trying is what you have to do to get ahead, and you have to fail and fail and fail and fail and fail. That's why sports is so good, because you get a 15th place before you get a 10th place, before you get an 8th place, before you get a 4th place. You did better this time, do it again. You did better, do it again. And that kind of environment allows people to fail and get encouraged to keep going. Outside of sports, or I don't know, spelling bee, things with kids. If you don't get that kind of place to fail and get approved for it, you don't want to fail. Tell me what you think about that, Cam.
I think it's true. I was kind of taking that to the next level of, then what do we need to do to kind of get rid of that? The stigma around failure might be the right way to put it, or more so the way we criticize each other. Because I think that's what it comes back to, is the reason that fear exists inside of us is because somebody criticized us at one point. And we have to, and this gets a little bit to, like I always joke about coaching calls, there's a certain point where you get to like a little bit of fantasy land where I'm kind of waving my magic wand on this type of solution. But it's like we get to a point where we need to be able to be more comfortable with each other and each other's failures, so we don't put each other down, And I think by appreciating each other's failures, not putting someone else down, it teaches you how to not put yourself down. That whole idea of, by learning how to love your enemy, you understand how to love yourself, that type of thing. That by letting others fail and being more comfortable with others' failures, I think is a pretty good way on that path forward. I don't know, I'll throw that over to you, Dad, because I think this is one, we've talked similar kind of things. What do you think we can do to, make that change, whether it's magic wand solution or something a little bit more applicable, I guess?
I think it's the if we flip the switch to spending more time in optimism, the opportunist sees opportunity not only in their own failures but others' failures. That they don't see it as, well, that sucks, you suck. They see it as, well, that didn't work. What about this? How about this? And I think that there's a that's a tougher reality in that opportunist. However, the opportunist is somebody who just, they see opportunity in everything. That's a problem. I know how to fix it. Y'all are having a fight. I know how to resolve it. You screwed that up. I screwed that up. I know how to try again. And that sort of attitude, and even to the point of, well, I feel like crap. Now I don't have to. The opportunist, if we remind ourselves that we can be, that opportunity is everywhere, and we can have that kind of a life when we choose to. That's the difference. And I think it goes back to the root cause of the understanding that it is a choice. And that's something you were touching on, Robert, is the root cause at a very young age is understanding that you are choosing and making choices. And the choices, I mean, it's the choices have consequences, right?
Yeah.
The sit on your bed or clean your room, Camden. And what does he choose? Sit on his bed. He's going to sit on his bed because he's not going to clean his room. Well, that means you get to sit on your bed. And that's the consequences.
Yeah.
And understanding that, but in the sense of, well, what's the opportunity in this? And I think that's a different way to even change that simple A or B test with a child. Clean your room, the or, it's in teaching them the and instead of the or. And that there's some deep parental philosophy that I hadn't thought about a whole heck of a lot. Robert, I'll leave that with you to see where you're going with that thought process.
Well, I just want to say thank God I survived 5 kids. And each one of those kids had a different personality and a different gift mix. I had a daughter who was my middle daughter. Her older daughter was an all-star. I mean, her older sister. And her younger sister was an all-star. Athletically, academically, they were just hot. But she was a non-type A, non-confident. She was more creative, artsy, didn't want to get out of a cubicle, liked living in her own little world. And she, as much as, we loved on her and said, you're as smart as your sisters, you're as gifted as your sisters, you're as everything as your sisters. She chose not to compete against her 2 sisters. And she pulled the plug on herself at about 8th grade and said, I'm not going to go the way of the family. I'm just going to bury my head and get real quiet. And so she began to hang out with losers where she could be the best of the losers versus hang out with the smart going somewhere kids where she was the bottom of the smart going somewhere kids. So she was a leader, but she chose a different group to lead, the ones that were going nowhere. She became a rescue agent of all the broken kids. So we watched this daughter just sort of spiral down into this comfortable place of failure with other failure kids. And she's around, there's 5 of them, and the other 4 are, saying, what are you doing? But her personality at that place in her life, she just didn't know what to do. She got pregnant at 17. Before she got pregnant, she was hanging out with doper kids, and so I had to took her to New Mexico and put her in military school to get her out of town, get her out of the state. She got in a fight at the military school. Some guy looked at her boobs and said, "You got big boobs," and he was a senior and she was a freshman. And since she'd been fighting with her brothers all of her life, she hauled back and broke his nose. And of course, she said, "Hey, Dad, I got him." And I said, "Yeah, but you got kicked out of military school. You can't hit a senior kid, because he talks about your boobs." "Yeah, but he shouldn't have talked about my boobs, And I said, "Well, that's right, but this is not the environment to take on the commander kid, Anyway, we wrestled with her. She got into drugs, got into alcohol, and she went to jail. And so fast forward, now this is the same family, the same kids, family dynamics, everything that's working for some doesn't work for others. Today she's 28. She's divorced. She's clean and sober now 5 years. And she says to me, "Dad, I'm so glad for what I went through because I'm smart and I can overcome." And now she's back in college and she's like kicking in gear. And you wonder, why did it have to be so lengthy? Why couldn't it have happened back when everybody else was working on their stuff? But it happened later on in life. So I don't know. All I know is that I know nothing about parenting. All I know is that I gave it my best shot, but people make choices at all ages. And then you have to live with the dynamics of those choices and then work yourself out of the hole that you dug, junior high, high school, college, 20s, 30s. You have to then figure out, I guess I can learn something different. And I can go from the negative to the positive. I'm not dumb. I am smart. I'm capable. I'm gifted. But that's a revelation that comes to someone somehow. And as much as you want to inject it like a needle into somebody, you get it, they have to get it through their own struggle. And we have listeners today listening to us that they're in a struggle. And they like you guys and they appreciate you, but they're in the middle of a struggle. And to what you said, Otis, it's a matter of choice. When are you going to get sick and tired of being sick and tired? When are you going to stop playing the victim and take responsibility for your stuff? And when you do, then make the decision, I'm going to find a mentor or an encouraging group and I'm going to change. And there's nothing more fun to see somebody the eyes light up and they go, "I'm changing, I'm growing, I'm going to be better, do better, and I'm going to find the right people that'll help me do that." And if you're listening to this thing, I would really like you to please write Otis and Cam and say, this podcast today shook me up or bugged me or challenged me. And this is what I'm doing with what I'm listening to today. Because you can just turn us off and go back and suck your thumb, and now I got problems. Or you can say, everybody's got problems. Everybody's got issues. There's no perfect person. Everybody's working on stuff. And you get to join the rest of us working on our stuff, where you can suck your thumb and be a victim and make a choice to say, it's my mom's fault, my dad's fault, it's the cop's fault, it's whoever raped me, whoever did this and that, whoever beat me, blah, blah, blah. Instead of saying, yeah, it's screwed up, but I'm in control and I can change and I can grow. And I hope, talking about this stuff is one thing, but for them to come to you guys and say, thank you for this kind of conversation and give me the permission to think about it a new way and to now grow because of this podcast. I wish you would share that with Otis and with Cam so they know what it is that's happening to the listeners out there.
Oh, that's so powerful, and it's such a great message to emphasize. And
it is. It is, like for me, I'm born with bad feet. I don't learn to run till 6th grade without my stuff on my ankles, my feet. I have no one to play with on the playground. They're all running around. I'm alone. I get told I'm a mistake. in third grade. Don't you know your mistake? Because I'm an adopted kid out of a baby orphanage. And just for grins, I find out 6 months ago, who my mom and my dad are. So I'm dropped off at an orphanage at the hospital. The hospital puts me in the orphanage, and somebody comes by and gives me a name instead of a number at 3 months old. I got all kinds of snakes in my head. Rejection, failure, poor self-worth. My mom goes through this. I get sexually abused twice. 7th grade, 8th grade, I start drinking. I start drinking in 8th grade. I'm screwed up. I can't think positive about anything. I feel like I'm a failure. I don't fit in. My dad's a Phi Beta Kappa out of Stanford. My dad's a Mensa. My mom's a Phi Beta Kappa out of UCLA. My sister's a Phi Beta Kappa out of USC. And there's me getting a 1.5. Drinking, drugs, doing stuff, screwed up. And yet one day somebody tells me this message: when you stop being a victim, and why don't you just embrace growth? You are so messed up with these glasses on. If you just look at this and take responsibility and grow, this world will fall off, and there's another world for you. And I finally heard the message, and who knew that this kind of stuff inside of me was in that junior high kid and that high school kid that barely graduated from high school. But I finally heard the message. And there's people out there that need to hear that message. That you're smart, and you're gifted, and you're pretty, and you're handsome, and you can. And you have unlimited possibilities. You just have to look in the mirror and say, I'm ready to deal. I'm ready to grow. And that's why I like what I do, because I get to facilitate all these happy growth, painful growth, fun growth. You're miserable, so what growth? Don't you like it? I went to college 5 times. My dad said, why are you going back the 5th time? You've already flunked out 4. I said, no, I got it this time, Dad. I got it. He goes, yeah, right. But it was after military. And after military, I got the snakes out of my head. You can do this. I went and got A's. It wasn't that big deal when you're thinking right. So there's people listening that really, really need this kind of encouragement. And we 3 believe in who you are, whoever you are out there. We believe in you. And we just want you to keep coming to this podcast and keep getting encouraged.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as part of that encouragement, I want to share what I learned. And I already mentioned miserable won't kill you, so I won't use that because I already used that, repeated that once.
You can have it for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Well, it's not, but it's not what I'm going to identify as what I learned. What I learned is that it's hard to sink in crap. And there's a lot of deep in crap too, and a lot of deep in that metaphor of it's hard to sink in crap. So,
Yeah.
I think there'll be a whiskey words about that here in the near future. I can just say that.
Yes, sir.
You're the only one who's ever made that observation. It's hard to sink in big, thick crap.
Yep. Yes, it is. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I think, as I was kind of, as we were pontificating a bit towards the end there about, where does this problem come from? How can we help people with those kind of things? I thought back to coaching and thinking my little kids with the Engage Foundation, and like a kid that comes out that has no idea how to pass a rugby ball, and they get there and they just like fling it like that, and I'm just like, hey, and there might be somebody that laughs, there might be somebody that snickers at him, those kind of things. But it's like, to me, it's like I chuckle because I'm like, oh, you don't know. And then I teach them. And then it's like, hey, here's how we're going to do it. And like having that approach of like when we see somebody who fails at something and just be like, oh, hey, that's all right. You're trying. Like, oh my gosh, look at you. You're trying. And just having that care, like of a coaching perspective on it. And I think if we, I guess I have the coach personality, so it's easy for me to say this, but I think if people could carry that towards each other, and when we see each other failing, I'm just like, hey, look, no, but you're trying. That's awesome. And I can help you with that. Or I can set you up with Otis. He can teach you how to do that. And all of those kind of things. And you just have that kind of like constant optimism towards the teaching that a coach has. Like to take that rugby example, Dad, you and I have talked about this before. I'm confident I could get any. If you give me enough time with somebody, I'm going to make a great rugby player. And no matter who they are, eventually I will get through to them and I will teach them everything they need to know. And I have that kind of constant optimism towards my coaching. And I think if you applied that to other failures, not just a rugby or not just that, you apply those to the failures of life, I think we could be in a very, very positive spot.
I think so too.
Awesome.
I think
Robert,
that's
how
great.
about you, man? What'd you learn?
I learned that I get the most joy in life watching people grow. I'm refortified again that I get excited when I see people get into a battle and come through the battle victorious. And again, you folks don't know this, but I was a senior pastor for 25 years. And I started a church with kids, working with kids, after I got out of special ops military. And I guess I just still like watching kids look at you and say, is it really true? I can grow. I can change. I can become. And I hope I fade out in my 80s and my 90s with the same words in my mouth that I believe in you guys more than you have any idea because people believed in me. Mm-hmm. When I had nothing going for me, men spoke into my life and said, you're just screwed up. You're undisciplined, this and that, but you got a lot of talent. I went, no, I don't. They go, oh, yeah, you do. I said, no, I don't. They go, oh, yeah, I do. You just screwed up. And I went, really? They go, yeah, you got a lot going for you if you just change. And I said, switch, show me how. And that's, I think, all kids need or adults need. It's funny. I'm going to be going up to Minnesota, and I'm going to be doing a workout. I'm giving 25 businessmen a 5-hour workout. They want me to come up and just get a hold of them. They think they're studs, and I'm saying, great. They're flying me up. And I've been up there once before. It's coming up in September. And we sat around and talked before. And what really got me was these were all affluent businessmen. Affluent. These were all guys that were working on their athletic ability, a lot of hockey players. And some of these guys were leaking the same stuff that we're talking about, and they're in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. They've never worked through it. They're still carrying around the baggage of what was spoken to them when they were kids, or what they failed at, they're so embarrassed about. And it can happen at all stages of life. That if you don't change your diaper, you carry that diaper with you all your life. And it's just like, why are you still talking like that, dude? I mean, like you're 60 years old. Well, my dad, he's been dead 30 years, 40 years. Get over it. And they're still dragging into their second marriage, third marriage, no relationship with their kids. All kinds of, they drag this stuff with them. And so I'm fortunate I get to go up there and spend a day talking to them and then give them a workout where they all become humble. And I'm going to teach them that miserable won't kill them. And then we're going to sit down, and talk and have life with a bunch of guys. So it happens at any age. You just have to say, did anybody see anything in me that I need to change? And can you show me how to do that? Help me. And I think it's all our ages.
Awesome. Robert, how do people get in touch with you, find you online?
They do somehow. My website is my name, Robert Hamilton Owens. My mom, my adopted mom gave me the name Hamilton. I said, Mom, you pull some kid out of an orphanage and you call him Hamilton. What'd you think? She said, I just looked at you and said you need a good name, good middle name. So it's Robert Hamilton. She was speaking things into existence,
Yes, sir.
RobertHamiltonOwens.com. And my email is my name, Robert Owens. But the Owens has 2 S's because there's so many Robert Owens to my kids. I said, okay, I'll put an extra S on. That's who I am, So I'm Robert Owens with 2 S's at Yahoo. And I'm speaking, I think, 9 times between now and November 15th.
Awesome.
I'm speaking to kids. I'm speaking to students. I'm speaking to businessmen. I'm speaking to military. And I'm happy to go out and encourage folks. If you just let me know what you want me to talk on and how I can help you, and I'll tell you how not to row across the Atlantic and be on a good team. How to grow leaders.
Robert, man, it is always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks you for what you do. And again, all you listeners, you need to email Cam and Otis and say, this is what I got out of this. I'll be bummed out if you don't talk to them. So please do that, and contact me anytime if you want to talk. All right.
Awesome. Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. And a special thanks to our guest, Robert Hamilton Owens, for joining us today. Remember, you can watch full episodes of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, the full archive of episodes is available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again. We'll see you all next time.